is what we call a strictly typed language. In that, in order to do certain operations, we need to be using the correct data type to perform those operations. For example, to do a mathematical operation, I can't do math on strings. It'd be hard to multiply a string of South Mountain times another string of ABC. So they have to be numeric data. So we need a way to be able to convert between string data and numeric data. Oftentimes we're going to ask the user to enter information into a text box, which is data entry. And if you remember, the text property of a text box, which is where they're entering that data into, is a string data type. In order to do some math on that, we have to be able to convert that string to an integer or a double or a short, etc. So I've created a little application here. I'm going to do 3 different things to demonstrate converting between string and numbers to string. So the first piece of my code, I create a variable called feet, which is a string data type, and I assign it a literal string of 59. Remember, this is not a number. This is string data. It's characters. In order to do some math on that, though, I've got to be able to convert that to a mathematical equivalent and then do math on it. And I do that here in this next statement. So I'm going to take my variable feet, which is a string. I need to convert it to a double value. I'm going to do that using a method called double.parse. Remember, methods have parentheses, and inside those parentheses we might have some arguments. And my argument here is I'm going to pass it the value of feet. The value of feet is a string of 59. And what that does, it converts that string of 59 into a double value. And I can then take that double value and divide it by 3 and assign that whole result to another variable called yards, which is of type double. And here is the result of that. Doubles have 15 significant digits, and I get 19.66666666667. Not sure I got the correct number of 6's in there, but you get the idea. Well, I want to display that value of yards, my variable yards, in a message box as the prompt or as the text of that message box. So I have messagebox.show. I want to show yards, but that prompt needs to be in a string format. So I can take my double variable of yards and convert it to a string using the ToString method. So it's yards.ToString. Every object in C# has a .ToString method. Everything can be converted or displayed as a string. That results in this message box, and we see the value of yards displayed there as a string. In those parentheses for that .ToString method, I can also specify an argument of a string. In this case, my string is n3. And what that says is I want this to be a number format of 3 decimal places. And so it takes that value of yards, and rather than giving me the 0.666666667, I get 19.667. So 3 decimals. It rounds it up to 3 decimals. In the same way, we used n3. And by the way, if I did an n2, it would give me 2 decimals, and n1 would give me 1, and n5 would give me 5 decimal places. Instead of the n, we can use a c, and that c stands for currency. In this case, I have a variable named double price equals 127.99. I show that message box using price.ToString, and I pass it the argument of c2, which puts a $sign in front and treats it as currency to 2 decimal places. By the way, the 2 is a default. I could choose to just put C and it would get the same thing. It'll assume the 2 decimal places. Here's another example. I have a variable called success rate of type double. I want to divide 97 by 122. Let's say we've had 122 CIS students and 97 of them completed the course. I want to know what that success rate is. I can display that in a message box, again, passing it success rate. And success rate is going to be the value of 97 divided by 122. That's about 0.7951. But I'm going to display that as a percentage. And here I can use in the ToString P2. That's going to give you 2 decimal places and display it as a percent. In essence, it's going to multiply that value by 100 with 2 decimal places, so it's moving the decimal point. And the result I get is 79.51%. So the P2 displays the percent sign as well as changing the format to be a percentage. A second operation in our button code is I want to do the same thing but converting to an integer rather than double. So I have a variable I'm creating called whole yards, which is an integer value, and I want to take that value of feet, convert it to an integer, and divide by 3. Both that value of parsing feet as an integer becomes an integer value, 3 is an integer, and if I divide an integer by an integer, I'm going to get an integer. So it's going to truncate the decimal. So in this case, this is creating an operation of 59 divided by 3, which that integer division gives me a value of 19. Then I want to display that in my message box. In this case, whole yards is an integer value, but still a numeric, and I want to convert that to a string, and I do that using .ToString again. Remember, put the parentheses after that. There are 2 sets of parentheses. There's an outer left and an outer right, and then an inner left and an inner right. For every left paren, you must have a right paren. Parsing is most commonly used in getting input from the user from a text box, with that text property being a string, and I want to treat it as a number. I always need to parse it into whatever numeric variable data type I'm using. So in this case, I want to take the number A and number B text boxes that the user has entered 7 and 10 into, convert those to an integer, and then do some math on that. So I'm creating 3 variables called A, B, and C. They're all integers. I'm going to assign the value of A being whatever the user's entered into this text box, txt number A. I'm going to get the text property because that's what they've entered into. That is a string, so I need to convert it to an integer using int.parse. Same thing with what they've entered into the text for txt number B text box. I need to convert that string to an integer using int.parse. Then I can multiply those 2 together. So A is going to be 7, B is going to be 10. Multiplying those 2 together, A times B would give me 70. And then here in this message box, I'm going to use the value of C and convert that to a string. So I'm getting a string value for my prompt of 70, and that's what's displayed in the message box. So that's how we convert between string data and numeric data, and between numeric data back to string data.